Hello and welcome to another edition of Superhero Movie Review Time. I'm your host, Grant Liston, a very, very bored Englishman. Some of you are probably wondering why I've jumped ahead to X-Men First Class instead of going for X-Men Wolverine Origins. There's a couple of reasons behind this. First of all, Wolverine Origins is a terrible movie. If you haven't watched it, congratulations, I actually envy you. Furthermore, I do believe we should leave X-Men Origins, Wolverine 2 and Logan as their own separate trilogy because it focuses mainly on Wolverine. And also, while I'm filming this, Logan has really just come out in cinemas and I don't want to give any spoilers away. So we'll leave that for another day. So this is my review of X-Men First Class. Thank you, Bradley.
It's alright.
So the film starts off with Magneto's European tour. He starts off in Poland in 1944, giving us the reenactment of the first X-Men movie, but then shows us what happens after he nearly brings the gates down. He meets up with a very, very important Nazi called Klaus Schmidt, who knows full well about the mutants and what they can do. So discovering one that can control metal is very, very appealing to him. He then instructs the poor boy to move the coin or he's going to kill his mum. Doesn't go quite the way he wants to and shoots his mum in the face. Pretty fucking hardcore way to start a film off, I'm not going to lie. We now fast forward 20-25 years and we get the much older Magneto played by Michael Fassbender. Very, very impressed with his performance. If you look at some of my past reviews, I've got a huge man boner over Sir Ian McKellen, so these were some seriously big shoes to fill. And I think Fassbender did an okay job, actually. Not too many complaints. So Magneto's second stop in his European tour is Switzerland, where he starts trading in some illegal Nazi gold, with the pretext of finding out the location of Klaus Schmidt. This is where we get a much more sadistic side of Magneto, where he starts playing dentist and starts removing some metallic fillings in the bloke's skull and starts ripping them out until the bloke speaks. This film has started off with a lot of promise so far, and I'm just loving this Magneto train. We now come to Magneto's last stop, and it's a small bar just outside Argentina. This is where Klaus has been last sighted, and Magneto notices on the wall there's a picture of him with two guys arm in arm on a yacht in Miami. So as Magneto's sort of gathering his thoughts, enjoying his beer, he sees the two guys behind him having a laugh and a joke, speaking fluent German. Magneto then gets into quite an interesting bar brawl here, mainly using his powers to completely obliterate the three of them. Odd note, the guy who gets stabbed in the hand, I'm very confused at his reaction. You're just stabbed. Ah! Okay, I've never been stabbed in the hand before, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't turn to Gene Simmons. This is... Ooh. I digress. The film now brings us to our second character, Charles Xavier, played by really good James McAvoy. Now, people here in England will probably recognise James from shows like Shameless or films like Starter for 10. And yeah, he's very, very good, but I was a little bit worried with this casting choice. However, Patrick Stewart gave him his blessing, and both McAvoy and Fassbender do fantastic jobs with their roles. I cannot understate that enough. These two are not perfect, but brilliant as Magneto and Charles Xavier. But first, we meet a young Charles Xavier meeting a young Mystique. And Charles basically adopts Mystique as his younger sister, and she starts developing feelings for him, almost like an unrequited love storyline. Now, I'm sorry, this is the first point in the film where I have a bit of a problem with, because I don't buy it. I just don't. I look back to the first X-Men movie, and I see Mystique break into the X-Mansion, poison Cerebro without batting an eyelid. Are you trying to tell me that all those years ago she had a crush on Professor X, and because she was most likely spurned, she'd happily just poison him? I'm not seeing it, I'm sorry. Not buying it. We're going to now move on to the film's main actual plot, because behind the main character structures of Magneto and Professor X, there is actually a storyline to this film. And I like what Matthew Vaughn actually did with this. He decided to take a part of history, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, and basically wrap the X-Men universe around that actual fixed point in time. You're thinking, okay, it's an interesting thought. Maybe he could have tried doing something original, or maybe even actually taking something from the comic books. Like, there's so many different stories out there to sink your teeth into, but at the same time, it is also something different having, you know, a live event that actually really happened and putting your own spin on it. I liked it, but I think he could have done more with it. We're now introduced to a character called Moira McTaggart, who had a very, very, very brief role in X-Men The Last Stand. We're talking fringe character will be pushing it, more like a cameo. So she's introduced as a CIA agent in the 60s, you know, very, very discriminated against, not taking seriously, almost all of her suggestions are laughed off. Many of the men probably think she should get back in the kitchen. She is staking out a place called the Hellfire Club, which is actually from the X-Men comics, I'll give them due on that one. And she's tailing a guy called Sebastian Shaw who runs the place. Using her immaculate espionage tactics of, you know, getting a kit off and running down the stairs, Moira infiltrates into the Hellfire Club, where she finds a secret passageway into the underground lair, and oh god, it just screams Scooby-Doo, doesn't it? I mean, oh my god, jinkies! So Moira witnesses Sebastian Shaw discussing military plans with an army general, saying to him that it's probably a good idea to plant your missiles in Turkey, and of course the general's like, well, that's just blatantly going to start a war with the Russians, we're not going to do it. So Shaw brings some intimidation into it. He introduced 3 of his associates in Azazel, Riptide and Emma Frost, played by January Jones, and okay, 3 brand new spanking villains straight off the bat, you know, as henchmen if you will. They've all got a bit of personality to go about them, some rich backstories. Let's see where they go with this. No, Riptide doesn't get any lines, Azazel is poorly used, and Emma Frost is basically eye candy. So upon Moira McTaggart's discovery of mutants, she decides to track down the leading professor in mutation, which just so happens to be Professor Xavier, little knowing that he's also muting himself. They all track down Sebastian Shaw to his yacht in Miami to bring him down once and for all. During the battle, Sebastian Shaw and his team escape on a submarine and Magneto nearly dies. Charles Xavier jumps into the ocean to save him from drowning, and we finally get the payload we're all looking for. When Harry met Sally, when Professor X met Magneto. Once safely back on land, Charles and the CIA talk about rounding up the rest of the mutants before Sebastian Shaw can recruit them to his mutant rebellion. Magneto makes it abundantly clear it's got to be him and Charles who do the recruiting, no suits, because we don't want to install any more fear than there already is. So now we meet the First Class. We start off with Beast, played by Nicholas Hoult. And this is a Beast before the fur, so I was a little bit disappointed because it's just a guy with basically 4 hands, and I was a bit underwhelmed. Like, okay, I vaguely recall from the comic books that Beast, you know, gets his fur through radiation poisoning, I think, and at the moment I've just got this skinny, gawky kid with 4 hands, and I'm a bit like, yeah, you suck, mate. Charles and Magneto then go to a strip club, good lads, where they meet our second member, Angel. No, not that Angel, Angel Salvatore. I've got to be honest, I honestly thought this character was Pixie when I first saw this film, but after looking at the cast list, and obviously her referring to herself as Angel, I'm still none the wiser. Charles and Eric then go to a prison isolation cell where they discover Havoc, which is, oddly enough, Cyclops' younger brother. So they met Havoc before they met Cyclops. Alright, I'll go with it, fuck it. And to round out the numbers, we also have Banshee and Darwin. Not to mention possibly the greatest cameo in a Marvel film ever, and it wasn't Stan Lee, it was Wolverine. The CIA then get some intelligence saying that Shaw is going to Moscow to meet with their generals to discuss putting missiles in Cuba, starting the big war. So Charles and Eric join the CIA in their mission to Moscow, leaving all the kids behind in the CIA. This is where we get our first 2 proper action fight sequences, and unlike the first X-Men movies, these 2 didn't disappoint, although they were still very limited. They start off in Moscow when they discover Shaw didn't turn up, but he sent Emma Frost instead. Charles and Moira are about to call a halt on the whole mission, but Magneto's having none of it. That's his right-hand woman, she'll do, and storms the gates, and it's a very, very impressive psychotic rampage he goes on. Him versus all the military, using barbed wire to trap them all, kneeing them in the face, destroying their guns at a flick of his wrist. with Charles hot on his heels in pursuit. The pair of them find Emma Frost entertaining the Russian general because she's also a telepath. She is basically portraying an image of herself doing some sexy dances on his lap, and he's like... It's quite an awkward scene, I'm not going to lie. I can only imagine the 4 actors in the room were like, let's just get on with this one, shall we? Magneto and Charles then force Emma to reveal Shaw's plan, and they're horrified with the results of basically a brand new mutant utopia with all the humans being killed. Shaw, however, is back at the CIA headquarters where Charles and Eric have left the rest of the team unsupervised. Shaw sends in Riptide and Azazel to take out basically the entire CIA and the Cerebro they've built. Shaw then gives off one of his very poetic speeches of how we should all be ruling the humans as kings and queens, and convinces Angel Salvatore to come over to his team. Darwin and Havoc have a bit of a macho man shoving match, and Darwin says, hang on, I'm going to come with you, I adapt to survive, and try a double bluff ruse. Shaw sees straight through this, and when Havoc flings his beam, I guess, at Shaw, Shaw absorbs all the energy and passes it into Darwin, killing him. By the time Charles and Eric arrive back to the CIA, they find the place completely destroyed and the kids all very shaken up. Charles is in favour of sending them all back to their parents, but some of these kids have nowhere to go. Almost a direct rip-off line of Last Stand, I'm not going to lie about that one. Eric, however, convinces Charles they need to stand up and fight. This is their time now. So Charles brings them back to the X-Mansion to start their training. So the training montage is basically filmed in almost like a comic book strip form, and this is an amazing bit of cinematography for me, because the way almost like the pages are flipping over and the slides are moving across to show you what they're doing. Really, really interesting stuff. So we get Havoc in the underground bunker basically trying to direct his beam in a forward projectile way, because we all laughed at Cyclops when he did it using his eyes, but when it comes out of a guy's chest, no one bats an eyelid, do they? Next up we've got a pretty boring one, but yeah, the pun had to be used in there somewhere. It's a basic foot race between Beast and Charles Xavier, where Charles tells Hank McCoy to unleash the Beast. Yeah, it had to be said. But this is an interesting one. We get Banshee being taught how to fly using his supersonic vocal calls to keep himself airborne. The best moment from Banshee comes from the stand on top of a satellite, and Magneto gives him a helping hand off and he has to learn how to fly spur of the moment. Magneto's a dick. Professor X then starts to ask Magneto what can he do with his power, and Magneto's like, yeah, go on, point a gun at my head and shoot and I'll stop it. Trust me, I've done it a million times before. And Charles is trying to calmly explain to him, well then you're not challenging yourself, you're not giving yourself enough inspiration to do so much more. Magneto tries to explain to him that it's the anger that burns through him that keeps him going, and Charles shows him that it's not just your anger, it's love. At this point I'm gone, I haven't seen anyone hit anyone in a while and I'm kind of losing my interest. However, it's a really nice scene where Magneto basically moves this enormous satellite to face him from such a far distance away using the memory of a birthday. Unfortunately, while the rest of the mutants doing really cool stuff to enhance their powers, whether it be flying, aiming, moving a giant satellite, Mystique is doing bench press. Oh, okay, physical health is very important, build the guns up and such. However, they really couldn't think of anything for Mystique, could they? I'm surprised she wasn't on a treadmill. All the while this is going on, Beast is trying to manufacture a cosmetic cure for his mutation so he can keep his powers but look like a normal human being. Seeing as it's only really his feet that are mutated, I'm surprised that was his goal in this movie, because all he has to do is keep his trainers on and no one will know any different. And okay, if he gets lucky with a girl, then it's going to be kind of weird to keep your socks on, but I'm sure you can make it work. People have their weird kinks in the bedroom. Look at Rogue, she likes to put them in comas. The film is now building towards its huge finale involving the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the X-Men start to gear up, and we get this close, I'm not kidding, this close to the yellow spandex suits. I mean, many of us who probably saw the trailers probably knew before me, oh look at these flight suits they're wearing, it's like yellow, it's almost like what you got in the cartoons, the comics. And I'm sitting there going, almost, they almost got it right. So the X-Men and the Hellfire Club then go to war over the Cuban Missile Crisis. Magneto then hangs out the side of the X-Jet and basically forces the submarine out of the water and throws it onto the beach, onto the side. You're thinking, Jesus, that was epic. That is up there with the Golden Gate Bridge for me. They're just moving something that size and throwing it over there. Brilliant bit of cinema right there. So we come to our big finale, last fight scene, and it disappointed. Yeah, it did. I actually think that the fight from The Last Stand was better. I can almost feel my subscribers list going down. You have to see where I'm coming from here, because we get really good moments with Havoc and Beast taking on Azazel, but Riptide, who was in this movie, I think, because you see him form a couple of tornadoes here and there, he doesn't say a word, and then as you gear up for the last battle to make himself useful, Magneto throws a metal door at him, and then you don't see him until the end. He's gone. But then again, we also get a really cool flying fight scene with Angel Salvatore and Banshee, which, okay, it was pretty cool, and especially when she gobs out this toxic spit, I guess, onto his wing, and cripples him. It was a pretty cool scene, I've got to admit. But this is where the real money shot is for me. This is the real big moment that I'm like, yeah, this film was awesome. It's the final confrontation between Sebastian Shaw and Magneto. And they're having their great standoff, and Shaw is just completely overpowered right now because he's been holding onto a nuclear generator to keep his powers steady. So he's brushing off whatever Magneto can throw at him, until finally Magneto lulls him into a false insecurity, using one of the metal cables to remove his helmet. And Charles finally grabs him. He's now frozen him. He's got him. They've now captured Shaw. But Magneto's not finished. He pulls out that coin you see at the start and says to him, "I'm going to count to 3." And then forces the coin through Shaw's forehead. Don't get me wrong. Sir Ian McKellen did some amazing things as Magneto, but Michael Fassbender's definitely going in the right direction to emulate this. This was a brilliant death scene. It had vengeance, it had self-righteousness, and also it was just so awesome. I mean, amazing. Meanwhile, in the background, Russia and America are communicating through their naval bases saying all the mutants are on that one beach and we've got all these nuclear weapons. Should we do something about this? Typical. So they send all their nukes launching it straight at this beach. Magneto steps out onto the beach wearing Shaw's helmet and basically becomes Mukneto because he goes very, very Irish at this point. Incredibly Irish. It's hard to take a Magneto speech seriously when he sounds like he's trying to sell you a caravan. Yet he then takes all the missiles in the air and swishes them around and sends them back, almost like an homage to the first film where he stops all the bullets. Yet this time round, it's missiles, and he's firing them all straight back at each naval base. Charles and the rest of the team try to stop him, and Magneto finally drops the missiles to turn to face Moira, who's shooting at him. He deflects one of the bullets, and it goes straight into Charles' back. And it was only at that point I actually realised, oh yeah, Charles is actually meant to be in a wheelchair, isn't he? Oh, that's why he's in a wheelchair! Ah, yeah, I definitely had a blonde moment there, guys. Sorry about that. The film now comes down to quite a satisfying ending with Magneto forming his first ever brotherhood with Azazel, Riptide, Angel Salvatore, and also recruits Mystique. And once they're quite sure that Charles is going to be okay and going to live, they disappear from the beach and break Emma Frost out of prison. And so there we have the very first brotherhood gathering right there in that prison cell. And I'm like, that's going to lead on to something really cool. Charles then finds himself wheelchair bound for the rest of his life and has a nice heart-to-heart with Moira about the future. He then tenderly kisses her on the lips and erases her mind. Doesn't explain, doesn't even give a hint of reason why he's done it, apart from a possible, she might tell someone where they are? Maybe? I guess? I got nothing for that one. So, that was X-Men First Class. I did enjoy it. It needed more action scenes, but I loved all the new characters they brought in. And I'll tell you one thing I really enjoyed about this film. It wasn't centred around Logan. apart from his amazing cameo, this was a Wolverine-free film. And I enjoyed it for that fact. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Hackman fan. He is Wolverine, he is amazing. But it was a breath of fresh air to finally have an X-Men film where it wasn't all about him. And we got to see, the origin stories of two of the greatest X-Men in Magneto and Charles Xavier, also bringing in newer characters. When they first said X-Men First Class, I just expected young Cyclops, young Storm, young Jean Grey go from there, but no, they actually went about it very smartly. Maybe the villains could have done a bit more, mainly Riptide and Azazel. Azazel had 2 lines, Riptide didn't say anything, and they were a bit of a letdown character, the pair of them, just a bit of a letdown. However, I'm going to give this film an 8 out of 10. The storyline and the story arc were very, very impressive, and I enjoyed it. Something was just missing for me, but at the same time, it's hard to fault it. So, thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you all next time for X-Men Days of Future Past. Take care now.